Well, it was really hard. It never was easy at any point. I remember distinctly thinking at one point when it had gotten to a point where I was having to think about coming home early, where I just got to a point where I couldn't really function well enough to be a missionary, which requires a lot of work and a lot of effort. And so I reached a point where I really wasn't functioning well, and so I had to actually think about it. Think about, this is a possibility that could happen. I could be going home early. And I remember thinking that I would rather have died than come home early, which is a terrible thing to think. Like, the Lord never wants us to think that way, like that we'd rather die than do something, especially in regards to mission work, any part of missionary work. And I remember I was dealing with this for a couple weeks and just praying a whole lot. I didn't want to just give up and be like, okay, that's it, I'm gonna just quit. I really wanted this to be a decision between me and the Lord and no one else. I brought my mission president into it, obviously, but I really wanted it between me and the Lord. And so I prayed about it for weeks, and then finally one morning it just hit me like very clearly, like, you need to go home. This is not something that you can fix out here. You need to go home. And I was completely at peace with that. That was okay for me. I had reached a point where I was okay with that. And so it took a few more days until I actually got home, because we had to figure everything out and whatever. And then I finally got home, and then it just kind of was like darkness again. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do. I had I had my life planned out after my mission. I was going to go to BYU. I got accepted as a transfer student. I was going to get married, obviously. I had this whole life plan from the day I stepped off the plane, 9 months. It should have been 9 months from that point, but it was 9 months early. And everything was just up in the air again, and I didn't know what to do. There's a lot of really kind people, and I never felt like I had made a mistake necessarily. But you always wonder, like, was I really supposed to do that? Was I really supposed to come home early? And I don't have the answer to that necessarily. I don't believe that I was, but you never know. I think it would have been better for me if I would have had somebody tell me before I left on my mission that it's okay. Like, if you get to that point, it's okay to come home early. You're not a failure. I felt like a failure to myself and to my family for a really long time. And I think that would not have happened if I would have had somebody tell me it's okay. I didn't have anyone tell me that. Not my mission president, not my MTC teacher. Like, there's no one at any point in my mission told me, if you need to go home, that's okay. And so I think that's the one thing that I would tell people if I was in that position of sharing with masses of people that are going out on missions. Like, it's okay to come home early. If you reach that point, it's okay. You're not a failure. And I think if I would have known that, I would have been a lot more at peace with what had happened to me. On the mission, when you're faced with challenges, what is always told to you is just keep working hard, and everything will be okay. And I truly believe that that is true. When you're on a mission and you keep working hard, it helps. Like, everything else just kind of is fine. And when I realized that I was not feeling okay after working harder, that's when I realized that I was doing something counterproductive to myself. So when I kept working hard, and I just talked to everyone I saw, and I just felt like I was doing my best as a missionary, but yet I was not feeling fulfilled, and yet I was still not feeling okay. And that is when I knew that I was like, okay, something's wrong with this formula. I've got to change something. And so that's when I started opening up conversation with my mission president and things like that. Because if you face challenges on a mission, 100% I guarantee that if you work harder, things will work out. But if you're not meant to be on the mission necessarily, or if you need to go home, then things won't start. It'll just get worse. I think that was the key for me in regards to that. But hands down, if you face adversity on a mission, working hard, that is the solution. Just keep working harder. It's really hard for a missionary to come home early, no matter what the reason is. If it's medical or anything, that person just needs to be loved no matter what. The one thing that you should say to somebody who you know has come home early from a mission is, welcome home, we love you. That's all that should be said. Never questions. I know people are curious and people are naturally curious. Questions do more harm than good, honestly. But they just need to be loved and accepted more than ever. Because it was a very difficult thing for them to come home early. I know from experience it was very difficult. And the one thing that people needed to do to help me was to say, welcome home and we love you. It's definitely, I don't feel like it's my fault or it's God's fault or anything like that. I really believe that that's the way it was supposed to happen for me. But I do know a lot of people that struggle with that realization that this is what happened and that's what it is. But I don't know. I just have a testimony that God knows us so individually and that He has a plan for all of us and He is aware of all of us. And so even though this did not happen the way that I ever planned it to happen, I know that He still loves me and He still cares about me. So I think that's the most important thing to realize and to remember, is that even though you may have come home early, God still loves you. You did the best that you could. And He's so happy with that. So